Welcome to Hood Champion Boxing and Sports. In boxing, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. Tank Davis and Rolly Romero. These guys have a huge fight coming up at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn on May 28th. And a lot of people weren't giving Rolly a chance to even be competitive with Tank Davis. Now, I definitely was and still want to give Rolly a chance to come out victorious on May 28th. But there's some things that have been surfacing lately with Rolly that concerns me. And I like Rolly. I like Tank. Tank has a lot going on in his personal life, a lot of distractions. Rolly had a lot going on in his personal life and distractions, seemed to have gotten beyond that. But I think Rolly can be his own worst enemy. Sometimes I think Rolly needs to stay away from the camera. It's okay with having a colorful personality, taking jabs at your opponent, and just overall just spicing things up with the back and forth banter. But one thing that I'm not sure Rolly really understands what he's up against Tank Davis. And I'm not sure Rolly's giving Tank the respect that Tank deserves. There's a reason why Tank has performed the way he has in all of his fights. You can say Tank bullied opponents, last minute notice, whatever. Okay, whatever excuse you come up with to try to justify your argument to not give Tank credit for what he's done. Tank is an exceptional boxer, high IQ. But at the same time, what's gotten Rolly to the point where he's at now is Rolly has a whole lot of DGAF. DGAF. Don't give a bleep, okay? That DGAF is what had Rolly when he started to box as an amateur. I think he was like 17 or something like that. And had Rolly fighting against professional boxers and beating them up badly because Rolly has a whole lot of DGAF in him. Now, the thing about that can work for you or against you. But when you look at Tank, and we're comparing him and Rolly in the areas of athleticism and the area of boxing skills. When you watch these two train, when you watch them fight, who do you think is the most athletic? Got to give that to Tank Davis. This man doing backflips off the top buckle like it's WWE and everything else. Rolly's athletic as well, but you got to give the edge to Tank. And when it comes to boxing skills, it's a no-brainer. Tank has the better boxing skills. Tank's been boxing for a long time. He did very well. He has the amateur pedigree. Tank is an exceptional boxer. So when it comes to athleticism and skills, it's just going to be hard for Rolly Romero to compensate in those areas. But the one area that he's counting on is with his power. Now, Rolly does have punching power. And to me, that is Rolly's only shot at winning the fight. And I'm giving him a chance. A lot of other people aren't giving him much of a chance. But if Rolly can somehow impose his power and his size against the smaller Davis. I think Davis is 5'5", Rolly's I think about 5'8" or something like that. When they go in there on fight night, that could be like a super featherweight with Tank, and depending on how much he weighs, and Rolly coming in as a welterweight. And size matters in boxing, but also skills pay the bills. And we have to be fair here to both fighters and give Tank the edge just based on paper, boxing skills, athleticism, look at the record, and then at the same time we gotta look at power. They both have power, but Rolly has the size advantage. And we have to give credit to that, but that may not be enough for a victory. And this is the other thing, right? Because it's frustrating for me to watch it. Rolly, to me, had a huge advantage going into this fight. If you look how Rolly performed in his last 3 fights, right? Rolly hits extremely hard. He's extremely vicious in the ring. He has a lot of that degaff in him. And he really, doesn't care at all who's in front of him. He's coming in to hurt you. Rolly will throw you down. Rolly doesn't care. Rolly is really a madman. And then you look at Rolly and how much he gets hit. Doesn't really get hit a whole lot. He has this weird style that works for him. And a whole lot of power. And when he's in that ring, Rolly looks huge. Now you come look at Tank. In his last few fights, Barrios, Leo Santa Cruz, Isaac Pitbull Cruz. Tank got touched a lot. And against Leo Santa Cruz was outboxing Tank. But Tank was using a style where he felt he could take his power and he'd walk him down. But Tank got touched a whole lot. When he fought Mario Barrios, Tank got touched a whole lot. Santa Cruz had a size advantage, not much, but height-wise and reach. Barrios had a huge size advantage, height-wise, reach, and weight-wise, right? But we see how those fights ended up. But Tank got touched. And when he fought Isaac Pitbull Cruz, Tank boxed really good, and he didn't get touched that much. But he was on the move. He had to move the whole fight. But when you look at the two of them and their recent opponents and their performances, the fact that Tank was getting touched so much, I initially felt that you have to give Rolly a chance to touch him too with something. And Rolly hits harder than all three of those guys. Isaac Pitbull Cruz is a monster. Don't get me wrong. But I think Rolly hits harder than him. And if everyone else was able to touch Tank, why can't Rolly? Okay, so that's what I felt. And I said that I give Rolly a chance for the upset. I really do. Because Tank hasn't been showing that he has the one-hitter quitter power. He can break you down over round after round because Tank can crack. But going against Rolly, I just felt like if Rolly's touching Tank, he can wear him down too. He can knock him out. Tank's 5'5". Rolly's much bigger than him, stronger, and has that don't care attitude. That Marcos Maidana kind of just doesn't, give a crap about you. And he's going to come in and fight you. He hit you with an elbow, he headbutts you, he knees you, steps on your foot, knees you in the private area. He doesn't care. Pushes your face in the turnbuckle. Like Rolly doesn't care. And I think if he comes in there with that mentality, Tank would have a tough time. I still feel that. But this is what's going on. I don't think Rolly is respecting Tank's skill set, Tank's pedigree, and the fact that Tank can hurt him and knock him out while Rolly is training. I think Rolly is kind of caught up in his own hype, and he's just not showing the discipline needed in training camp to come into the ring against Tank Davis and forget being victorious, coming in the ring against Tank Davis to not get knocked out. See, you can go in there and train all day about getting your shots off and worry about what you can do. And that's okay to a certain point. But it's not okay if you're not thinking about what's going on with your opponent and what they can do to you. You see, I think some people need to understand kind of how the military works. It's a whole lot of strategizing, a whole lot of training, and most of the time, that strategizing and training is just to do nothing at all, except be prepared. Okay? Strategize, a whole lot of training to be prepared. That way, if you get the call to go and fight, you're ready. You know what to do. And you can get in there, execute the mission, win the war. Okay? Things work out. But and the thing is, you do that not necessarily knowing that you're going into a fight. We do that just to remain prepared and stay a step ahead of whoever you are coming to conflict with. Now in boxing, it's kind of similar. Even if you don't have an opponent listed or named for your next fight, there still should be some strategizing on things you can do better. There should be a whole lot of training to stay in shape and make sure you're ready when you get the call. And then when you do get the call, you go back now, tune your strategy and curtail it to your opponent, do a whole lot of training, and then you go into the fight and you hope to have a successful mission and you win the war. But if you aren't training as hard or harder than what's waiting for you out there, if you're not studying, strategizing, understanding their strengths, can't just focus on their weakness and can't just focus on the things you do good. You got to look at your own vulnerabilities. You have to understand their strengths. And with Rolly, I think he's just looking a lot at the weakness of Tank and his strengths instead of looking at the strengths of Tank and Rolly's weaknesses. And this is why I'm going to go on record and say Tank beats Rolly. Not just beats him. I think Tank will stop Rolly before 6 rounds. Because I don't think Rolly is particularly competitive with Tank. But I felt that looking at the previous fights, Tank got hit enough to where if Rolly can land a couple of those shots, Rolly can get him out of there. They're both human, okay? And I felt Rolly would take the fight serious enough to where when he got in that ring, he's going to be in shape to go a hard 12 rounds, fight every second of every round like a madman, come at Tank with that power and pressure and get his shots off. Rolly has a very weird style. I don't think Tank is just going to be able, a dedicated, committed Rolly, I just don't think he's going to be there as a sitting duck for Tank to get those shots off. Remember, Rolly is naturally the bigger man. It's not that easy for Tank, the smaller man, to get in there and get his shots off. He has the athleticism, he has the boxing skill to slip punches, close the distance really fast, and especially shoot that left hand and left uppercut. Tank is a talented fighter. But if Rolly was really disciplined, strategizing, training the way he's supposed to, not just focus on what he does good, you have to look at your vulnerabilities and then really focus on the strengths of your adversary. That is what gives you, should give you the confidence going into a situation or into a battle to be prepared and feel that you're going to win. I am not getting that sense that Rolly is doing that. And for that reason, I just have a feeling Rolly is going to come up short. Because like I said, he looked excellent lately. He beat, a couple guys. Punching power's there. He took his opponent's shots, so he handled that well. But we'll just have to see. Because if he's not dedicated, he doesn't have really much of a chance to winning, man. The overall better boxing athlete is Tank, man. And Tank has a whole lot of tools in his bag. And, it is what it is. But I tell you what, what's really unfortunate is if Rolly loses this, he loses an opportunity of really getting a huge fight next. He'll have to go back to the lab and kind of rebuild. And I like Rolly Romero. I think Rolly Romero would be a huge pay-per-view draw because of his personality. He's basically the Ricardo Mayorga that speaks English. And Ricardo Mayorga, he didn't speak English, but if he spoke English, he would have been a huge pay-per-view star. Rolly speaks English, so he just doesn't smoke cigarettes. But Rolly is today's English-speaking Mayorga. But when he loses, it is what it is. So then Tank is going to go ahead and he's going to catapult himself into another, probably a super huge pay-per-view event against a guy like Ryan Garcia. We know about Ryan Garcia and what he brings to the table. But a fight between Ryan Garcia and Tank would be juicy. And I think Rolly's going to miss his opportunity. Because if he clips Tank, Rolly's out into another stratosphere. Like, he's out of here as far as just superstardom. But I'm not getting that feeling based on interviews I've watched, listening to him talk, his sparring partners talk, that he's respecting what Tank brings to the table. And that's problematic. So we'll see what happens. But a lot of wise people have said, man, like I say, you find a way to win or you find a way to lose. And I'm sure a lot of you heard that before. But a lot of really intelligent people who've been involved in wartime scenarios, and they'll tell you, man, you fight like you train. And that's the same thing for the military, same thing for boxing, you fight like you train. From soccer, you got to play like you train. Football, whatever you're doing, the way you perform in training, that's going to be the end result when you get into a situation where you have to execute. So I just wanted to drop that 2 cents on y'all about Ryan Garcia and Tank Davis. I am really giving the edge to Tank. I still think Rolly has a chance, but if he's not really in there, if he's just expecting to just dominate Tank because he's bigger and stronger, he's gonna run into a rude awakening. And I'm not saying he can't pull off the upset. I just think he's losing his right to complain because he may not be pushing himself as hard as he should because he's underestimating Tank. Rolly Romero has gone on record to say Ryan Garcia hits harder than Tank. He's called Tank a koala. He's insulted him. Tank has taken a few jabs back at him, talked about if it was serious beef, he wouldn't be here, suggesting that he'd be killed already. He'd show up at his house. So they both have gone back and forth. But I guess we'll find out on May 28th up at Barclays who's the realest, right? And we're gonna see who can back up all that talk. But the person who should be able to back it up the most is the one who's took training seriously and is not just worried about what they do well, but really looked at their deficient areas and see where they can make some improvements and made the improvements. And then look at what their opponent does extremely well, not just what they don't do well, and be ready to have a counter for that. Whoever has done that before they get into that ring, that's the person I think is going to end up being victorious. Now, right now, it sounds like Tank is taking the fight extremely serious. Rolly's doing a whole lot of talking in interviews. I do believe he's training and training hard. I just think he's really counting on getting in there and steamrolling Tank Davis. And I mean, it hasn't happened before. And to be honest with you, if Pitbull Cruz couldn't steamroll Tank Davis, and of course, Pitbull Cruz is a little bit smaller, but that style that Pitbull Cruz has, I think Pitbull Cruz would clip Rolly. I'm going to be honest with you. And so I guess we'll see on May 28th. So I'll go ahead and leave it as that. About to get some water and get something to eat, man. But leave your comments below. Let me know what you think. I think Rolly has a puncher's chance, but again, it goes back to strategizing, training, And then when you get the call, go on in there and fight, win the war. And I think Tank has been doing that, and Tank is going to continue to be successful because of his discipline. Rolly, 14 wins, 12 by KO, nice record, but we will see if Rolly can back up all the chat. And I'm not sure he can, but we'll find out in a couple weeks. That being said, like and subscribe if you enjoyed the video. You guys keep cool. I appreciate the support. Shout out to all the veterans. And as always, I'm in the breeze.